You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the weekly Keep Canada Weird discussion series. If you're new here in Keep Canada Weird, my good pal Aaron Airport and I seek out and explore some of the more offbeat Canadian news stories from the past week. In tonight's episode, which was recorded on the evening of November 13th, 2022, Aaron and I ignore the many weird and wonderful things that have happened in Canada over the last week. Instead, we look in horror at a collection of weird stories that had played out in Tim Hortons restaurants. So what comes next is a discussion that will most certainly keep Tim Hortons shareholders up at night and leave Justin Bieber seeking a new licensing agreement. So let's get into it. Handsome Aaron Airport. This is a big night. I usually for our recording sessions, I'm drinking pop. Tonight, since I know we got to be on, and this arguably is for all the marbles, I made a pot of coffee.
You did, and it's it's an appropriate drink to have for the type of episode that we're going to be presenting this evening.
This is exactly the episode that many listeners have asked us not to make. People, well, I think some people are a little annoyed that we use so much of our energy and direct so much of the show's attention on taking down Tim Hortons. But at the same time, we've also heard from people who said, if you're going to talk about Tim Hortons, at least put it all in one section of the episode.
So they can ignore it completely.
So they can skip, yeah. So if you don't like hearing us complain about Tim Hortons or highlighting stories that take place in Tim Hortons, you want to just spam the skip button, because this episode, we're going at them.
Yeah, we're coming at them hard. It's going to be messy. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be aggressive.
It's going to be one-sided, because I'll tell you, I've been doing some research this week, and I got a good case for I'm going to make a case for both shutting down Tim Hortons, but also for maybe the government taking over Tim Hortons and using it as a venue for maybe some kind of social services, because it seems like that's important.
Yeah. And I've got something to add on to this too, if you don't mind. A listener of last week's show had mentioned to me about an issue that they had with Tim Hortons. And it's not on the schedule, but I would like to bring it up if you don't mind.
Like right off the top, you want to
right off the top here, yeah.
Unload.
Because I want this one to marinate with the listeners. And this might be a little homework for the listeners too, but someone who listened to last week's show mentioned to me that a gripe that they had with Tim Hortons is that the last time they went there to get a sesame seed bagel, they were told that they no longer sell them anymore.
What?
Yeah, I thought that was quite unusual too. So I was doing a little bit of digging, and by a little bit I mean a very little bit, but I did do some digging. So I was on the internet, they call it. I use it as a research tool.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I didn't see any official declarations from Tim Hortons or anything really overly official saying that the sesame seed bagel was no longer continued. However, I did see a few forums, some Reddit forums that were talking about, some questions were brought up about, where did the sesame seed bagel go? And then I found someone who made a tweet on, they call it Twitter. It's a social media platform. And so they made a tweet about what happened to the sesame seed bagel, where'd it go? Did they discontinue it? And Tim Hortons, the head of the snake itself, responded to this tweet with an answer.
And it is?
And they were referencing two different bagels, but we'll focus on the sesame seed bagel for now. Tim Hortons' official response was, "These two bagels are optional products. Please inquire with the restaurant manager for availability."
Passing the buck is what that sounds like to me.
Passing the buck, and it's like, where's the consistency at? They're leaving certain items as optional with managers where they can decide if they want to carry the optional products or not.
Come on. And I think the idea of making a sesame seed bagel an optional product, I would call it a flagship product. I think the managers are better served worrying about schedules and differentiating between tea and coffee in the drive-through window. I think Tim's corporate needs to hand down a firm message that yes, sesame seed bagels are available from coast to coast, open to close.
Yeah. Why would they leave some items up to the discretion of managers? What if the manager is in a bad mood that day and gets rid of a certain item? Like, what if the manager's ex-wife loved sesame seed bagels? Or what if the manager's, say, ex-husband left the manager for a sesame seed bagel chef? And so these personal issues will then go into the menu selection of just that particular Tim Hortons in that particular area.
It opens the door for bias, and ultimately it falls on the backs of the consumer, just like every misstep Tim Hortons has made along the way.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you opened with that because it does highlight some of the issues with Tim's, but we have so many more issues. And I think maybe by the end of this episode, people may say, I see why they don't have time to figure out the situation with the sesame seed bagels. They got a bunch of stuff going on in there.
Yeah, there were more about just domestic disputes here and just more of an arena for people to yell at each other than we are about selling our flagship items.
Well, let's get into it. Let me first tell you the genesis of this idea, of this episode, how this all came to be. So I've done an episode at nighttime before. I think it was actually like the 14th or 15th episode. It was called Weird Tim Hortons, and it was a collection of stories that took place in Tim Hortons, all in Nova Scotia, those stories in particular. I did in that episode the story on the appearance of Jesus Christ at the Tim Hortons in Cape Breton. I did the story of a woman who was arrested for selling marijuana back when it was illegal in boxes of Timbits through the drive-thru window. If you asked for the non-existent 15-pack of Timbits, that was code for, a gram of weed. And then I did the story of the guy who was ended up in a high-speed police chase on horseback after a dispute with the Tim Hortons owners about using his horse in the drive-thru. Anyway, so I had done that episode a long time ago. I often thought, I should do another episode like that at some point. I think what made it happen is this episode, or this voicemail I got last week. Let me play you the voicemail that a listener sent in.
Hi, Jordan. I don't know if you guys seen about the new Tim Horton story in Ontario, where a woman was not allowed to buy a coffee for a homeless man through the drive-thru. You might want to Google it and check it out. It's pretty disgusting.
Voicemail is pretty simple. When I heard that, I did a bit of Googling, and I ended up stumbling upon the Google search Tim Hortons followed by the word incident. If you Google Tim Hortons and the word incident, it opens up a plethora of bizarre stories. First, let me just tell you about this one. Because I thought, this whole story with the drive-thru not allowing them to buy the coffee for the homeless man. I wanted to figure out that story first of all, before I went down the rabbit hole of incidents in Tim Hortons. And in the voicemail that she sent me, she says, in Ontario, that this happened. I couldn't confirm that. I found a lot of people covering this viral video of a woman arguing with the Tim Hortons drive-thru window worker, I guess. But I couldn't find the location. But here's the incident that she's talking about. I'll play the audio of it. And imagine the way this works is someone's going through the drive-thru to place an order at Tim Hortons, and they have their phone running. I'm only going to play a minute of this because I find it so incredibly awkward. I have a hard time watching it. You listen and tell me what you think.
All right.
Hi, can I help you?
Hi, can I get an extra large triple?
Anything else?
Friend, you want a coffee?
If you're asking for the man outside, we cannot.
He did not ask me for anything. He's my friend. And I've called corporate on Sunday, and they actually informed me that I can buy a homeless man a coffee. So I'm recording you. I suggest you give me the 2 extra large triples.
The But during policemen, we're not supposed to serve him.
You're not serving him. I'm in a vehicle and I'm paying for 2 coffees. You're not serving him.
Yeah, but
I know him personally, and you can't tell me that I can't buy my friend a coffee.
Yeah.
I don't like that video. My thoughts about it is she obviously is going there to get into the argument. Like she's filming knowing what's going to happen. So what probably happened is she maybe had an incident a day or two prior and she's going back now to capture it on film. But she, like, as soon as the worker creates, says like, you can't buy that person a coffee, she's just like guns a-blazing.
Oh,
and
she's ready.
She's ready to rock. But I think I watched that video and I was like, I'm not going to do an episode about that, but I'm going to go back to my Google search that included Tim Horton's incident, and I started going through the other stories. But I think this one, to start with this, is smart because it highlights this problem with Tim Hortons where they're so synonymous across Canada. They're everywhere. A lot of places they're open really early and stay open really late. They have a large lobby that allow people to come in and sit down for hours on end. People have talked about Tim Hortons almost to be the modern town square right across the country for, you know, people to sit in and have meetings and debate. But in that same vein, Tim Hortons, I think, has found itself being a place that needs to like almost offer social services because that's, again, homeless are hanging around outside, begging for money. People are sleeping in there and whatnot. And this story shows Tim Hortons being like, we do not want to deal with, you know, homeless people. We don't even want our customers buying them coffee when they're sitting around outside. So this is how it's going to start. But we're not going to focus just on that. I have a bunch of stories. We got the story of a goat, the story of a snake. We got the story of some bugs. We have a poop story, naturally.
Oh, well, to keep Canada weird, poop's got to be mentioned somewhere.
And then we just got a whole bunch of complaining here. How do you think we start with this?
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters where we start. I think they're all equally, you know, just ripping on Tim Hortons for an hour here. So let's do it. You pick out of a hat.
My hat picks the multi-part series on goats. The story
Let's do
new to
it.
you? So this one is, again, when I searched Tim Hortons incident, this was one of the early ones to come up in it. This is a story that takes place in Saskatchewan in 2018. It does involve someone showing up uninvited at a Tim Hortons, but it's not a person. I'll play you the first news clip, then we'll talk it out.
Well, staff at the Tim Hortons in Martensville were dealing with a rather unruly kid this past weekend. No skateboarding, no biking, and absolutely no goats. This little guy refused to leave the coffee stop, so RCMP had to step in. The Mounties tried to escort him outside, but he kept returning through the automatic doors. They figure the goat was a little chilly. He eventually got a ride in the back of a police car, but he wasn't too happy about it. RCMP knocked on every farm door north of Martensville and called animal control, but had no luck in finding the owner. The goat spent the rest of his night at an animal hospital, but is now back home safe.
A goat wanders into a Tim Hortons. The staff shoo the goat out of there, but because it has the automatic doors, the goat can just walk right back in. And what do you do with a goat? It's not like a stray cat where you like scream at it or something and it takes off and it's scared and it's never come back.
Well, to even shoo a goat away or to like physically remove a goat from an area, like a goat can put up enough fight that you can have a hard time doing that. Like a cat, yeah, you can get a broom and shoo it away, or even a dog, you can kind of distract it enough to get it out.
Just take off, yeah. But a goat, it's like, for one, it can put up a bit of a fight. It can, like, don't they headbutt or something?
Yeah, they're pretty, they can take care of themselves,
if they have to.
And they often do.
But they're also, is a goat not like a very dumb animal? Like a cat is smart enough to be like, I'm out of here. And a dog is probably smart enough to be like, I'm scared, I'm out of here. But a goat would just be like, that door opens, I'll walk in.
Well, wouldn't you? I don't see that as a sign of low intelligence. I see that as a, hey, it's cold out here. When I go through that door, it's warm, and I can smell some food.
Yeah,
why
that's
wouldn't
true.
I spend time? That doesn't make them dumb.
And it was a chilly night when this happened. So initially, when they find the animal, when this is happening, they believe it to be it's just trying to get out of the cold. But it's not a wild goat. This goat belongs to someone, and that's kind of where the plot thickens with this story.
Well, an update to the story we aired yesterday about a goat found early Sunday morning inside the entrance of the Martinsville Tim Hortons. The goat had wandered into the business through automatic doors. Warm and RCMP were called in to remove the goat, and it was taken away in the back of a police car. It's now been determined that goat is owned by Lakeland College in Vermilion, Alberta. It had been rented by the University of Saskatchewan rodeo team for a weekend rodeo event near Martinsville. A spokesperson for the U of S rodeo team says the goat had been stolen, but doesn't know how it ended up at the Martinsville Tim Hortons.
So the goat, it turns out, is owned by some group that rented it out to a rodeo.
Yeah. I mean, there are only a handful of probably suspects in town that would probably, you'd go to be like, who probably owns this goat? You know, there's 2 farms. There was a rodeo recently. But even probably a small list.
I don't know. I would think in like rural Saskatchewan, there'd be tons of people that would own goats. And I think police even went canvassing like down streets, like, you know, anyone who looked like they may have a goat, like, excuse me, sir, are you missing one of your goats?
Yeah.
But they find the owner of this goat. They have no idea, though, how it ended up at this Tim Hortons in the middle of nowhere. I'm immediately suspecting foul play. Foul play meaning not like a violent attack on the goat, but I think someone was involved in bringing it there. Could this be a prank?
They were put away for the night, and there was a rodeo cabaret that night. And in the morning, we were informed that one of the 3 goats that was there was missing.
I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden he was in Tim Hortons, all cuddled up beside the heater and the automatic door, and welcoming people to get their coffee, I guess.
That Tim Hortons is in Martinsville, 20 kilometers north of the rodeo grounds in Saskatoon.
He's little. I don't think he could have walked all the way to Martinsville into Tim Hortons on his own, but you never know.
Goliath refused to answer any questions. Some say he was kidnapped, part of a cliché college prank. But Brown has his own suspicions.
When you're around college instructors a lot, I guess you'd probably get a taste for Tim Hortons coffee, so that could have been part of it.
In the end, the rodeo team was just happy to get their goat.
I don't see it being a prank. If it was a prank, it would have had some kind of a message to it. Like maybe, you know, if that Tim Hortons was being suspected of serving goat meat. Or
like a statement, almost like
like a hey, you know, hey,
nice.
Stop with the goat meat, man. Here's a goat.
What a
I don't
direct
know.
message.
Maybe if one of the nicknames of the employees is Goat, and somebody was playing a prank on Goat themselves, the person whose nickname is Goat, and they're like, and we'll put a goat in there, and then Goat will see it.
Wow, you don't have any idea.
None of these theories.
They're not sticking to me. No,
none of these are working for you. Eh?
No.
Okay, well, I'm out of ideas then. Sorry.
They seem like the speculation seems to be that someone just took it from this rodeo as a stupid prank and just probably had the goat in their truck or their car or something, and maybe eventually we're just like, we got to get rid of this goat, and they dropped it off at Tim Hortons. That seems to be like
whenever you're looking to get rid of your refuse or your whatever issues you have in life, you throw it at Tim Hortons apparently.
But you say this needs to have a message, as you will see.
I don't say it needs to. If it was a prank, it would need to have some kind of a connection, some kind of a message. So I don't think it's a prank. That's why.
Well, let me use that as the segue to the next story, which appears to be a prank, but has absolutely no message. And if it does have a message or meaning, the only message or meaning is that humanity has a lot of problems it needs to sort out. Do you know the story about I think we will call it the snake incident at the Tim Hortons?
I'm aware. Yeah.
Okay, you're aware of it because of the episode notes that I sent you, but did you know of this story before this?
No.
Okay, this takes place at a Tim's in Saskatoon. So we're in Saskatchewan. Same place the goat turns up, except several years prior. This is in 2014. I'll play you the news clip, but I think the news clip gets it wrong. The news clip, I think they're leaning on the comedic value of, this crazy thing happened to Tim Hortons. Mm-hmm. But I got to the bottom of what actually happened, and it's way worse than the way the news makes it sound. So here's how they describe it.
This bizarre incident happened when police got a call at 7:30 in the morning that staff from this Tim Hortons had fled outside because someone threw a live garter snake behind the counter. Police say two 20-year-old men came into this Tim Hortons and were arguing with an employee about how their sandwiches were getting prepared, specifically that they wanted diced onions. Now, this argument escalated, and one man reached into the other's jacket and pulled out a live garter snake and threw it behind the counter. Of course, this led to a lot of commotion. A manager told me there was a lot of screaming, people were really scared, and a lot of the staff flat out fled the restaurant. Now, once police arrived on the scene, they found the snake and discovered it wasn't poisonous. So while it was definitely scary for the staff, it didn't pose a big risk to their safety. Police located the two men nearby, and they're facing charges of causing a disturbance and mischief. A representative from Tim Hortons said they're cooperating with the police investigation but can't comment on the incident. As for the police, they said they have certainly never seen anything like this before. They did, however, tweet out this picture this afternoon. This is Outlaw. This is the snake they found here, and they, of course, gave it that app name. They also mentioned that it wasn't hurt during this incident. Outlaw has been taken to a temporary home where he's going to live out the winter until he's released into the wild, where hopefully he won't run into any coffee shops.
You see what I mean by they kind of have a light approach. They're kind of sort of making a joke about it, and the way they describe it happening is a like kind of a complaint sort of escalates when they want it diced onions. It escalates to the point of like a snake being thrown. That's not at all what happened. Really, what it was these two buffoons go into the Tim Hortons, and they're filming themselves just messing with the cashier, and they're giving this like really long, drawn out, complicated order that contradicts itself in all these different ways, and eventually they throw a snake at her. Here's the actual clip of what happened from the people who actually filmed it. It's pretty awful. Check this out.
I can't wait.
My sandwich. I want the same thing. He wants double bacon, but not as much bacon as mine.
Okay.
But I also want extra, so.
Okay, so both of them with extra. Okay. Anything else? Anything else, sir?
Oh yes. I need extra bacon.
Yeah, I got it already.
And tomatoes.
Yeah.
Sliced and diced. Okay.
Okay.
Onion.
Do you want an onion?
Little bit of onion.
Okay.
There's lots of onion.
Okay.
There's lots of onion. I'm gonna release my snake. Oh yes. Oh yes.
Awful, eh?
Ugh.
The
worst.
To put up with it. Like, those people seem like the worst people. The idea of like the two of them just like mumbling and laughing at each other.
I think they're so like being so witty and so interesting and like outside the box. Like, this is like Tom Green, remember him? Like, this is just awful.
This poor lady, like, who has to put up with them, and she's and also the idea of like coming that hard at basically bullying like someone who's at work at this low end job. I felt awful for her, and these two people who they don't realize how pathetic they're being, and then to throw a snake at someone while they're working. For one, why do they have a snake in their jacket? Like it's.
Well, it's a garden snake, right? So
yeah,
they
probably just picked it up
found it somewhere, and they're probably doing a bunch of stuff with it all day. You know, huffing gas and throwing snakes. I mean, that sounds like what they probably do every day.
Yeah. I followed the story a little bit. They ended up, they got in some, I think they didn't go to prison. They got like a year of like communities, they're a lifetime ban from Tim Hortons. And then they had a year where they had to do some community service or something, like a very minor punishment. It's
not going to really. These guys sound like they're so far gone that a year of community service is not going to. I'm sure they're going to bring snakes to wherever they have to serve the community and probably throw snakes there. So.
Yeah. But man, it just hearing that shocked me. And I think hearing what actually happened and then heard the light take that the news reporter had kind of bothered me. I feel horrible for the person working that night and having to put up with these bozos. But I think anyone who listens to this that works, you know, back shift at a Tim Hortons or a gas station or something, they're probably thinking like Aaron and Jordan, like that is like every second night we deal with some clown
I'd say
like that.
every night probably. If you're working like a back shift at a gas station or a late night, any late night place that serves food, you know, where drunks are going to be coming in, like that's just constant, you know. Brutal.
Throwing the snake kind of raises the bar a little bit. That's a bit intense. But in my search results for Tim Hortons plus the word incident, that is not the only obnoxious thing I've seen or heard of being thrown at Tim Hortons staff. In 2018, in Langley, BC, an incident at a Tim Hortons coffee shop made international news as a result of this involves something being thrown, but it also goes back to what we talked about earlier with not being allowed to buy the homeless man the coffee. This is kind of about how Tim Hortons reacts to people wanting access to their restaurant, specifically access to their bathrooms in this case. If you don't know what happened in Langley in 2018, listener discretion is advised for this one.
It's a doozy.
The RCMP is investigating a disgusting attack on employees at a Tim Hortons in Langley tonight, and we should warn you right away, some viewers may find the details upsetting. CTV's Ben Milger reports on a dispute over the restaurant washroom that quickly got out of control.
In this security video from a Langley City Tim Hortons on Monday, a woman can be seen arguing with staff. Suddenly, she unties the sweater around her waist and pulls her pants partway down. We are not showing what happens next as the woman defecates on the floor. She then throws the feces at staff. She also throws soiled napkins in their direction.
Well, I'm kind of disgusted with it.
It is what it is. There's a select few around here that are just like that.
Tim Hortons says some of its restaurants, including this one, have a policy where only customers are allowed to use the restrooms. In this case, staff were trying to enforce that policy. In a statement, the restaurant chain says, "Our current understanding is that the team member used their discretion in this case and denied access to this guest based on past behavior and out of concern for the immediate safety of team members and guests in the restaurant." Outside the restaurant, opinion was mixed about whether non-customers should be allowed to use the bathrooms.
Occasionally, yeah. It would be a handy thing. People that just come in here and use the facilities and then, you know, leave it a mess, right? So that's been a bit of concern that they have with this place here, right?
As for this video, you can see a staff member on the phone with police while the woman does her business. Langley RCMP caught up with her in the parking lot and say she was released and given a date to show up in court. It's now up to the Crown to decide if she will be charged with assault.
Gonna let you handle that one, Aaron. What do you think of this?
I love the reaction of one of the people they interviewed that was just like, it is what it is.
I guess he's right, though. It is exactly what it is. She pooped and threw it at him.
Well, I get the kind of feeling that this person that they interviewed that said, well, it is what it is, probably was anticipating that this was going to happen at some point, because he's like, they don't let just anybody use the bathroom here. They're very particular. One of these days, somebody's going to take a dump right on the floor and throw it at them.
It happened. And it was caught on video. It's disturbing. It's shocking.
Oh, and it was national news that was a big story when that
it was
happened.
all over. When I was trying to figure out what eventually...
Like the poop on the wall. It was all over the place.
Ugh. I was trying to get to the bottom of what eventually came of it. I found articles about this from all over the world, but I could not find any updates other than like they found her, she was arrested. RCMP were looking at what charges there would be, but then like silence. I could not find any information. So if anyone out there knows what came of this woman in this case, I'd love to hear about it. It certainly is criminal. And like, if that was me working there and that happened, I would want like the book to be thrown at this person. But people like with news, like the incident is so shocking, it would be shared far and wide. But what plays out afterwards, I guess, not so much, and maybe that's why hadn't been able to find anything other than the initial reporting.
Yeah, and this is one of those stories where I feel the context may be missing.
Well,
like there could be I always thought as soon as when I saw this story first appear, that there was some lead up to that incident that we didn't see.
Well, well, I'm sure there is, but when I think of it, what I assume had happened is like people often will want to get into whether it be Tim Hortons or any kind of public washroom, especially when it's like a downtown kind of one. People want to get in the bathroom, and a lot of coffee shops or whatever, they keep it locked and you got to go ask them to open it. And they do that because they don't want just people going in there and making a mess or using injection drugs, which is in some areas a big problem. I've been in a public bathroom recently. I took my kid in at a gas station, and when we go in and turn the light on, it was like this bright blue light. And I was like, what is up with this light? I thought it was just they put maybe a Halloween
this
bulb
light.
or something.
Yeah.
But it turns out that bulb was used because it makes it so that you can't see your veins. So you can't use injection drugs. I told my son, I said, I think maybe they meant to put a regular bulb in and grab like a Christmas bulb or some weird thing like that.
Yeah. Well, I got to say though, non-paying customers, right? Like or non-customers, whatever we call them. They're not the only ones doing damage to bathrooms. The paying customers are too.
That's true.
And the paying customers, especially like when it's a coffee shop where all you have to pay is maybe $1 at the most to get a cookie or get a small coffee.
Yeah, it's not a big hurdle to get over.
It's a pretty small price to pay to use a bathroom. So you're not really keeping out, the S disturbers, as we'll call them. But...
Or the S throwers.
The S throwers, S Club 7. But anyway, I've been to bathrooms where I've entered in after a paying customer has just left. I was at a Smitty's recently.
Okay.
And I got to tell you, I'll never look at a Smitty's bathroom the same way again.
Oh, God.
It was awful.
Okay. And it was a paying customer.
And it was a paying customer. And they destroyed that bathroom to the point where it was unrecognizable. And I had to use the bathroom really bad, but I walked in, I saw it, and then I just turned around and walked away. And I said, no, I will not go to the bathroom here. That's disgusting.
Wow.
Yeah, it was horrible.
But in this case, with what happened in Langley, I think this woman wanted to use the bathroom. They would not let her as not a paying customer. Maybe they recognized her as someone who comes in all the time because she's a local unhoused person or something like that. Whatever the case may be, they denied her entry to the bathroom. And this is what it led to. Should Tim Hortons open their doors wide open to the public for bathroom services?
I mean, I've gone into Tim Hortons to use the bathroom without paying a bunch of times.
I have a bunch of times. And then with gas stations, that's like a typical thing, right? Like
yeah. To me, it's like, don't ruffle the feathers, you know, don't poke the bear. Like, just leave it alone. The hassle that you deal with trying to enforce the rule is way more than the hassle you'll deal with, you know, trying to have a little extra cleanup in a bathroom, which I don't think you would, because I think, again, the paying customers are destroying your bathroom just as much as the non-paying customers are.
It's funny. There was another story that I was going to include in this that I didn't include because of it was so similar to the other stories, and it didn't have a resolution as well. It involved another dispute over the bathroom where late at night a woman went to the drive. I guess the way this Tim Hortons worked is they locked their doors at, say, I don't know, like just example, like 10 o'clock. And after that, it was only drive-through. The woman went to the drive-through window and asked, like, it's an emergency, can I go in and use the bathroom? They wouldn't let her, and she ended up climbing into the window of the drive-through and attacked the worker, and she was arrested for assaulting the worker. And it was another bathroom dispute, which brought up the whole argument, how should Tim Hortons handle it? But I think, like I said at the beginning, people use, for better or worse, use Tim Hortons for like social kind of services.
Well, they have so many locations that you almost have to take on that responsibility. Like, if you're going to use up this much real estate in an area, which Tim Hortons does in every area, you know, every third block there's a Tim Hortons.
Well, imagine if we
then
had...
you have to allow people to use your bathroom regardless of the circumstances.
Well, that makes me think, like, should Canada monetize, like, homeless shelters and emergency services? Imagine if you think of how many Tim Hortons there are and the hours they are open, and you know, the amount of staff they have on hand. Imagine if Canada had something like that for people in, you know, mental crisis or like some kind of crisis, and they were everywhere. It would be amazing. They just find a way to monetize them. And
again, just let people use your bathroom.
Here's another story that involves Tims finding themselves at the heart of Canadian social problems. This involves a knife-wielding man in Sudbury who simply wants a coffee. Here's what's going on.
It's too f***ing early for this shit. Move it!
I was
Have some f***ing respect for the rest of the people in this.
But why is
Seriously,
everybody running off camera?
Because you have a f***ing knife in your hand, you moron! Get outside!
I need mace! Drop the mace! Drop the
Get
f***ing
outside!
This is footage of the incident that forced Sudbury's downtown Tim Hortons location to temporarily close on May 25th.
You're gonna get arrested!
Jenna Ray was in line for her morning coffee when she said an aggressive man walked into the restaurant, yelling and brandishing a knife. Ray says that the man was aggressively demanding that customers in the store buy him coffee, and that multiple attempts were made by a number of customers to calm the man down and de-escalate the situation.
I don't want people in trouble.
According to Ray, one of the people trying to calm him down was a woman who was holding a can of bear spray. Ray said some people intervened and tried to get him to give up his knife by force. There was a big struggle and the bear spray was deployed. Towards the end of the incident, a woman was on her knees being held down by the man with the knife.
Hey, enough! Leave her alone, please! Let her go!
Ray said several people were able to free his grip on her, and Ray brought the woman to the security guard at the Sudbury Transit Center located next door. When Greater Sudbury police officers arrived on the scene, they found the man standing behind the counter, holding a large knife against the throat of a Tim Hortons employee. The officers told the man to drop the knife and release the employee, but the man ignored instructions and continued to use the employee as a shield. The employee was able to break free, and officers immediately gained control of the man, removing the knife from his possession. A number of people were treated by EMS as a result of the incident. Both the man with the knife and the woman who deployed the bear spray were charged. The 31-year-old man was charged with hostage taking, assault with a weapon, weapon dangerous, robbery, resist arrest, and numerous breaches. The 34-year-old woman was charged with administered noxious substance, possession of a weapon, and numerous breaches.
Oh, when you Google Tim Hortons and the word incident, you find stuff like that. That is a hell of an incident.
Yeah, that's about as incidenty as it gets.
Yeah, the man appears to be deranged. In the whole thing, though, what is shocking is why did the woman get charged? The woman
That's
who
the
sprayed him.
That's the biggest question I had was, I guess she just happened to have bear spray on her while she was in line at Tim Hortons.
Well, looking at the video here, like if this is the kind of stuff that's happening, it's makes sense. I think I probably will carry bear spray from now on. Seemed like it was a good thing she had
and
the
some
bear
people
spray.
carry bear spray. You know, maybe they're hikers, maybe they're maybe just for general protection.
Maybe they're gone to Tim Hortons in Sudbury.
Maybe
where
they're just going to get a coffee, and it's like, this is just there's a lot of goats and knife wielding maniacs here. So.
But for people who are listening and not watching, that article, like in the video, you see a man without a shirt on holding a woman who's down on her hands and knees. He has a huge knife in his hand. She's covered up, waiting for like him to start slashing at her at any moment, I assume. Another woman walks up and sprays him in the face with bear mace.
Yeah.
It seems like, a totally inappropriate thing to do. Although, of course, when you spray bear mace inside, it's going to affect everybody in there. People are going to run out of the building coughing and sneezing.
Yeah, maybe the type of spray she wasn't allowed. I got the impression from the charges that she was carrying almost like it's a concealed weapon or something.
Yeah.
Or the way they charged her.
I've tried to find it, much like with some of the other stories, I tried to get updates on what happened with these people. I could find nothing. I can only assume those charges were dropped against her. I don't know.
Oh, I assume any lawyer that would take that on and be like, this will be a piece of cake. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, like we'll take that trial by jury, please. Because any jury, I think, would see this and be like, thank God she had bear spray.
Well, yeah.
Thank God she had a legal bear spray and sprayed it indoors and, affected everybody, but especially the guy with the knife that was holding the woman down over a coffee. But I guess the idea of him wanting
But
a
at
coffee
any point in time, so this guy wanted someone to buy him a coffee. That's how this all started.
But I think
he pulls out a knife.
It's certainly more than that. I bet you people who know this guy will be like,
it doesn't. They'd be like, it doesn't matter if I fell for this before. It doesn't matter if you buy him a coffee. He's going to take the knife out anyway.
Yeah.
But that's what I was wondering when I watched it. Like, at any point in time, does someone think about maybe just buying him the coffee?
Yeah, like, here's the $2. Get a coffee. Let's all get out of here.
Put the knife away. Get a coffee. Whatever, cream, milk, sugar, whatever you want.
Or the staff. Not to say the staff should have jumped over the counter and tried to restrain this guy, but shouldn't they have been like, buddy, we'll get you a coffee. Just put the knife down. You can have all the donuts you want. I would treat it like an armed robbery or something.
Well, that's how, when you're being robbed, like, say, at a convenience store, they say just give them whatever they want and get them out of the store, right?
But in this case, in any of the videos we see, he's not confronting the staff. He's confronting everybody in the lineup.
Well, he wants them to buy him a coffee.
Ay.
So, once the knife comes out, I'd be like, yeah, I'll get you a coffee. It's not a big deal. But I'm sure, again, there's the context leading up to this before the record button is hit. How was this person acting and how was it all playing out before someone started recording?
But yeah, that is just this whole thing. Hearing these stories play out one after another, does it change your perception of Tim Hortons, or maybe this is no surprise to you?
This is no surprise. My perception of Tim Hortons has always been extremely negative. Not always. When I was young, I enjoyed what Tim Hortons used to be. I certainly do not enjoy what Tim Hortons has become. It's a place where actions like this happen all the time now. It's just kind of what you expect in a lineup at Tim Hortons, I think. And stick to the drive-through if you're going to dare, buy a Tim Hortons product.
The drive-thrus can be freaky too. I told you this story where the woman jumped through the window. We had the incident in Halifax where I'm living just 2 or 3 months ago. We talked about it on the show. The man who went through the drive-thru and exposed his genitals to the worker. Then they had his photo up. They eventually found that guy and had him charged.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
And actually, just this morning, I had a weird little situation at a Tim Hortons drive-thru.
That's because you go there every day.
I know. I was going through with my kids, and as we're in the drive-thru, it's kind of hard to say this verbally without showing you photos, but you're kind of driving along the side of the building, and where the drive-thru window is, just after that, the building kind of goes in a little bit where there's probably like an oil tank or something. There was a man kind of standing in there, and he kept like peeking around the building, watching me like pass things back and forth with the woman in the window, but he was just a couple feet away. So I saw him, and even my son in the back said like, "Dad, what's that guy doing?" And he just looked like a demon or a goblin or something. And I was thinking like, maybe I didn't say this to my son, but I was thinking maybe he's waiting for me to like drop change and he was going to like grab it and run off. Or if I was passing a bill, maybe he'd try to snatch it and take off. Or maybe he's just really weird and just kind of hiding out in this little nook and cranny in the Tim Hortons drive-thru. But needless to say, all I really did was took a picture and drove off.
Yeah, well, that's your duty as a correspondent for Keep Canada Weird, is to just snap a picture and run.
Speaking of correspondence with Keep Canada Weird and covering breaking news in real time, a weird kind of news coincidence happened. Last week on this show, we talked about doing this, about our attack on Tim Hortons, their reputation, and all they stand for. Very shortly after that, I got a text from you. It had a link. Let me read your exact words. You sent me a link to a news release, and then you said, "We finally got them. They're going down. They messed with the wrong weirdos." Do you want to sum up anything about what you sent me, or do you want me to read this?
Just give it a read. It's all yours.
Here we go.
The Canadian Food Inspection Agency is warning people not to use Tim Hortons brand chicken noodle soup base because it may contain insects. The product has been sold in Ontario and Alberta and is mainly used in restaurants and hotels. The soup base features best before dates up to and including October 20th.
I had chicken noodle soup the other day from Tim's. Does this mean I've eaten bugs?
No.
Are you sure?
You're okay.
Okay,
You're fine.
thank you.
You're fine.
I mean, that's good.
Don't worry. It's good protein, though. Come
Apparently
on.
so. Apparently so.
Yeah, so not really shocked to think that there's bugs in some of their food. I've seen bugs crawling on their food. Like when you go into Tim Hortons, there's all the donuts and stuff with the glass over it, and you pick your donuts.
Yeah.
If you go in there on a summer day, it's not uncommon at all to see flies or maybe a
right.
hornet in there crawling.
We're talking
around.
about, in the can, like
in the chicken broth, like soup base.
Right in the soup itself, canned up. You open it up, you pour it into your bowl, and there it is. Bugs. This is the only ones that we know about, though, that have come to light.
Given the way Tim Hortons uses their licensing agreements, I wonder if Tim Hortons even made this, or if just some company had slapped.
Well, this
Tim
is
Hortons
again,
logo.
this is the biggest issue that we have with Tim Hortons, is that everything is third and fourth party produced, and nothing is made kind of in the store anymore. Nothing is freshly prepared, and it's just Tim Hortons is just dollar store discount garbage food now, and
in a brand that's quickly becoming worthless, a brand that is being sold to have its name slapped on ice cream, cereal, granola bars.
Anybody who will let them put their name on something, they will do it.
I was at Value Village the other day, yesterday, with my son. And when we were walking through the electronics area, he's like, "Whoa, look at this, Dad!" And it was a little TV, DVD player in one, like something you would bring on your car or something. And it was Tim Hortons brand. It had a big Tim Hortons logo on it. And he's like, "Tim Hortons makes this." And I was like, "They make everything, son. Like they suck so bad."
Yeah. It's like, master of none.
Hello, listeners. Sorry to pull you out of the episode like this, but I want to take a moment and remind you of the benefits of a nighttime premium feed subscription. First of all, I release the episodes ad-free and 2 days early on the premium feed, which gives you the show quicker and a lot less painfully. Secondly, I maintain a full back catalog of nighttime episodes and countless hours of bonus content only on the premium feed. So to give you more of the show than any sane person would probably even want to listen to. And the third thing, premium feed subscribers who do so annually get a discounted rate and receive a free swag pack by mail. Who doesn't love mail? And lastly, but hopefully most importantly, the premium feed will fund the creation of the show. My mics, my laptop, the little lights on my desk, it's all paid for by the combined efforts of the premium feed subscribers. So if any of this sounds good to you, for about the price of a cup of coffee, you can go premium right now at patreon.com/nighttimepodcast. I want to thank you for considering it. Now, let's get back to the episode. There is one, well actually there's probably a few Tim Horton stories I enjoy, but I want to go out with what's probably my favorite one. I'll set the scene a little bit here. So I told you I did, I think maybe the 14th or 15th episode ever of Nighttime. I reached out to listeners to share with me interesting Tim Hortons related stories. And back then I focused more so just on Nova Scotia. So they were all Nova Scotian based. One of the people who contributed a story is a good friend of both of ours. He and I want to share the story that he shared back then in probably 2016. I'm talking about our good friend and former drummer for the band Airport, Thomas.
Excellent.
Do you know the story Thomas contributed? Did you
I
hear
actually
this?
don't know the story, so I'll be hearing it for the first time.
It's so amazing.
I mean, after I hear it, maybe I'll remember it. But
he may have told you about this before. But Thomas, how would you, for people who don't know Thomas, how would you describe his like character and personality?
He's just unique. He's just talented and highly intelligent and just very unique.
Painfully intelligent and horrifically unique.
Yeah.
In the most wonderful way.
In the best way.
Thomas is the kind of guy that it's like he can't. There's nothing he could ever do simple. Anything he does ends up becoming interesting and complicated and deep. I'm not surprised to learn that a trip to Tim Hortons for Thomas ends up in being discussed on Nighttime twice. So here's the story Thomas shared.
I had to kill some time before work, so what I'd do is I would just go into the Timmy's and, you know, get myself a coffee and a bagel or whatever and sit down, and I'd wait maybe about, I think it was about maybe 45 minutes, so before I had to go off to my shift, which is very close, just a quick walk. You know, I did my usual ritual in the morning, and I'd received a new tablet, and I was still tinkering with this tablet. It was the first tablet I've owned, and I was you know, it's a bit different than a phone or whatever. So I was tinkering around with it and getting used to the operating system. And I had my headphones. I had some headphones, and I grabbed the Wi-Fi at Tim Hortons there, and I was tinkering around Facebook and stuff. And a friend of mine put up this. He always puts up really interesting videos that you should check out. So what I did was I clicked on the video and I had it playing, and the video said, you know, this footage of this ship in rough waters will blow your mind or whatever, which is you know a lot of stuff like that is clickbait now. But anyway, his videos are specifically more interesting than usually all the rest of the garbage. So I was looking at it. It was very quiet and very very plain. It was very, you know, this ship, you know, like up and down, and I was staring at it, and I was staring at it and staring at it, and I was like, what is with this video? And then suddenly it turned out to be one of those pop-up screamy face videos. The bugger got me, and he got me really good, because I'm sitting in Tim Hortons with these buds in my ears, silent as a church mouse, and suddenly this in my face, and I shrieked like a very, very serious, like, you know, fight or flight shriek in the middle of Tim Hortons with no warning. Everybody, you know, did their spin around. And the thing I'll never forget was a lady that had been working there. One of the workers came around the counter because she didn't see what happened. She thought somebody had been hurt. She ran around the counter, to ascertain, what's the situation. She looked ready to do whatever needed to be done. It was incredible. But I just spun around and I looked at her and I pulled the earbuds into my ear. I said, "It's nothing. I'm okay." It was just one of those, and I held up my tablet and I was waving it at her, and I said, it was just one of those screamy face videos, on Facebook. And she looked at me, and I realized in that moment that this woman probably had no idea whatsoever what I was talking about. So I appeared to be very a crazy person. So what do? You just sort of sink back to your whatever, and you
just finish your coffee.
And that's it. But that happened. And it was very embarrassing. And now in retrospect, it's very funny. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to
it. That's incredible, Thomas. Thanks for sharing that with me, buddy.
You're most welcome.
Have you ever heard that story?
No, I never heard it.
I know Thomas so well that I could picture that happening and him being alone in there and everyone just being like, this guy is nuts. But I also can see how it can happen. You know what he means by those? Like, he calls it a screamy face video. But there was
I know. When they first came out, I'd fall for them a few times.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was like a thing. That clip that he sent me that you just heard, that was from, I think, probably 2018, 2017-ish, in that area. And there was probably more of that stuff then. So hopefully people still get the reference.
Yeah.
But I think we did it here. I think we took a slice out of Tim Hortons. I think shareholders are probably scrambling right now to decide what to do. I think tomorrow morning the market's going to be abuzz when we release this episode.
Yeah. But, I think we need to every now and then, we cover a lot of weird stories around the country. Every now and then we need to shift focus to probably our most important task, and that's taking down Tim Hortons completely.
But we could also, in realizing the magic of putting the name of a business followed by the word incident in Google, I realized we got a lot of power here. We could probably take down any business. Who should we come for next?
If you're looking for Tim Hortons incidents, all you have to do is go to their Twitter, because when I was there today, and you know how at the top of a Twitter profile, you just have tweets and media and whatever. So when you go to their tweets and replies, it's just all negative complaints about Tim Hortons and them responding to it.
We understand how that could be frustrating.
Please message us privately about this.
Hey, rather than
customer, please message us privately about this.
Yeah,
over and over and over again.
Yeah, I see that for most businesses, their social, their Twitter especially. That's it. They're they look for people complaining about them, and then they want you to DM them to talk about it rather than complaining publicly. And it's
yeah. And that's the whole, and it was so strange when I went to their Twitter. They do not get a lot of engagement on their tweets at all. Maybe 10 likes here, 30 likes there, a few comments. It's really bad.
Yeah, well.
So if you think their food's bad, you should go to their Twitter and see how little people, except for complaining.
Are you suggesting that we look for people that are on Twitter that are complaining about Tim's, that are getting a response from Tim's? Should we also respond to them and offer a counter venue to air their concern? You can DM Tim's and talk it out with them, but you can also DM us and come on the show, because we would like to hear about the bad
stuff. Yeah,
stories.
Don't go to Tim Hortons Twitter anymore.
They're not going to do anything. Come to us.
No, come to us and air your grievances here, because we'll actually listen and give you the platform that you deserve.
Coming soon to Keep Canada Weird.
Yeah, so just when you thought, they're just going to do this one Tim Hortons episode to get it out of their system and then we can move on.
No, we're rebranding.
We're shifting focus completely, 100% to just
consumer affairs.
Yeah, Tim Hortons. Do it. We can do this. That the Keep Canada Weird community and us together can do this. Let's make a difference. Let's take down Tim Hortons. They've
do something good.
They've stepped on us long enough, and we're tired of it.
We got to step on them back. We got to push back. Yeah, we got a venue. We got a platform for this.
Push their golden shoes off of our withered bodies, and let's get back up on the street and let's take Tim Hortons down.
We're done. We got them. All right. Well, let's start wrapping this up, Aaron. This was good to get this off our chests and get this out of our system, but Yeah, we're just getting started. I think you've been pretty clear with that. Next week, we'll be back to our regular programming. I already have half an episode's worth of wild stories that played out in Canada this week. We'll take them plus whatever goes on next week. And next week, we'll be back with another wild one before we return to Tim's. Aaron, until next time.
Jordan, until next time. Tim Hortons really bugs me.
Amen to that, brother. I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our Keep Canada Weird mandate. But let us also call out for even greater support from you on our mission. If something unusual happens in your town, let us know. And the best way to let us know is by sending a voice memo via nighttimepodcast.com. We both hope to hear from you. Now, before we part here, let me give some thanks. Big thanks to Aaron for sharing another weird evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. Shout out to the internet's favorite cult leader, Unicole, who provides this series' intro and outro voiceovers. And lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you to everyone who listens to Nighttime, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. And on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers of the premium feed. Canada's best fashion designer, Mandy, Kayleen, Jamie, and Caitlin. Thank you for going premium. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show but can't do it by way of a premium feed subscription, you can give me a big hand by simply sharing this episode on social media and letting some like-minded friends know what we're doing here. If you have any story ideas, want to give feedback on the show, or contribute a voice memo to be aired in an upcoming episode, you can do all that and more on my website, nighttimepodcast.com. Aaron and I hope to hear from you. But until then, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you see anything weird.
The Nighttime Podcast is written, hosted, and produced by Jordan Bonaparte. Copyright Jordan Bonaparte.